Let's start with where every 49ers fan's head is right now, and that's the injury situation, because it's shaping everything about this matchup and, honestly, the next few weeks. The biggest name on that list is George Kittle, and at this point, it really feels like things are trending in the direction of him not being out there. He didn't practice with the ankle injury, and while the team hasn't officially ruled him out, that quick turnaround from Monday night is a lot to overcome. The good news.
Ricky can play on Monday?
Yes, there is a chance. He's doing a lot better today than he was on Monday. And
It's not believed to be a high ankle sprain, which matters long term, but short term, it's hard to feel confident he'll be ready. I'm curious where you're at on this, so drop a quick yes or no in the comments. Do you think George Kittle actually plays, or are you already mentally preparing for him to sit? Now, the injury report isn't all doom and gloom because there are some encouraging signs that really matter. Ricky Pearsall getting back on the field, even in a limited capacity, is a big deal. After missing time with the ankle and knee issues, just seeing him practice tells you the arrow is pointing up. That's the kind of development that gives this offense a little more flexibility, especially if Kittle can't go. Renardo Green being back out there is also huge for the defense. Darrell Luter Jr. held his own, and honestly, he wasn't bad when teams tested him early, but this secondary is simply better and deeper when Renardo Green is available. That's not a knock on Luter, it's just the reality of how this defense is built. You also see how carefully the coaching staff is managing certain veterans. When you see a player held out for what's essentially a maintenance day, that's about getting them to the starting line healthy, not about panic. That kind of approach has kept this team steady late in seasons before, and it's something I actually feel pretty good about right now. At linebacker, things are getting interesting too, with Eric Kendricks getting more comfortable. There's a real decision coming for the coaching staff. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem that affects snap counts, communication, and rhythm. Before we go any further, if you appreciate these calm, no-nonsense 49ers updates, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. The goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps get us there. Also, tap that like button because it tells YouTube this is worth showing to more Niners fans just like you. All of this sets the tone for where the 49ers are right now. They're banged up but not broken, and there's a real mix of caution and optimism heading into the weekend. And that injury picture ties directly into some bigger roster decisions and long-term planning that start becoming clearer when you look at another position group that doesn't get talked about enough, especially when things are going well. When you zoom out from the injury report, one of the more interesting storylines, right now, is what the 49ers are doing at quarterback behind Brock Purdy, because it tells you a lot about how this organization thinks. There's no mystery at the top. Brock Purdy is the guy. He's taking all the first-team reps, and there's no debate there. But once you get past him, it becomes less about the upcoming game and more about long-term planning. That's why you see multiple quarterbacks in the building and why the reps are being distributed the way they are. Mac Jones is getting most of the scout team work, which makes sense. He gives the defense a solid look and helps simulate opposing quarterbacks. Then you've got Curtis Rourke, and his situation is really important to understand correctly. This was always viewed as a redshirt year. The 49ers knew when they drafted him that he was coming off a torn ACL and that patience would be required. Opening his practice window wasn't about rushing him back into games. It was about evaluating where he's at, how he moves, and how he processes the offense. From everything that's come out, the team likes what they're seeing, and that's encouraging even if it doesn't lead to anything this season. This is also why it's not surprising that Rourke is expected to stay on the non-football injury list. It allows the team to protect him, protect the roster, and stay aligned with the original plan. Not every draft pick needs to contribute immediately to be a good pick. Sometimes the smartest move is to let a player learn, rehab, and develop without pressure. That philosophy has paid off for this team before, and it's clearly still part of how they operate. I want to know how you feel about this approach, so let me ask you directly. Do you like the idea of the 49ers taking these developmental swings at quarterback late in the draft? Or would you rather see them prioritize more immediate depth?
Things are moving fast.
Drop your thoughts in the comments because I think reasonable fans can land on either side of that. And if you're enjoying these deeper roster conversations, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and the support really does make a difference. Plus, you don't want to miss the next update, because once you get past the roster mechanics, the bigger picture in the NFC has started to shift in a way that directly impacts the 49ers, and it's something you can't ignore right now. When the news broke that the Lions were officially eliminated from the playoff picture, it really stopped me in my tracks, not just because of what it means for them, but because of what it reminds you of if you're a 49ers fan. This idea of championship windows opening and closing gets thrown around constantly, and Detroit is the perfect example of how fast things can change in the NFL. Not that long ago, they were up big in the NFC Championship game, looking like the next powerhouse in the conference, and now, just a short time later, they're watching the postseason from home. That's not meant as a shot at them. It's a reality check for everyone. What makes it hit closer to home is how often people have questioned whether the 49ers window is closing. You hear it after every deep playoff run, every offseason where key players leave, every injury-filled stretch. But when you actually look at how things have played out, it's clear how dangerous those assumptions can be. Perception changes fast. One year you're the young team on the rise, the next year you're the veteran group, supposedly running out of time. And yet here we are, with the 49ers right back in the mix at the top of the NFC, controlling their own destiny. That brings us to the current playoff picture, which is coming into focus faster than usual. Several teams have already locked in their spots, and the margin for error is shrinking. In the NFC West, it's still a three-team conversation, but not all situations are equal. The 49ers and Seahawks control their own paths, which is exactly where you want to be. The Rams are still lurking, though, and that's what makes this uncomfortable. Even without controlling their own destiny, they're the kind of team nobody wants to see rolling into January with momentum. If you're being honest, the worst-case scenario for almost everyone else in the conference is the Rams finding a way to get the top seed and the bye. They're built well, they're dangerous offensively, and they've got a young defensive front that can cause real problems. That's why the best hope for the rest of the NFC is simple: make them play more games. The more times a team has to take the field, the more chances there are for things to go sideways. That's just playoff football. Let me throw this one to you because I'm genuinely curious. Which NFC West team worries you the most right now if you're thinking about a deep playoff run? Is it the Rams, the Seahawks, or someone else entirely? Drop that in the comments. And if you're finding value in these bigger picture breakdowns, make sure you're subscribed and give the video a like. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support keeps this channel growing. All of this context matters, because when you understand how volatile the playoff race really is, it changes how you look at roster construction and team strengths. And one area where the 49ers deserve a lot more credit right now is a unit that's quietly rounding into form at exactly the right time. One of the most encouraging developments lately is how the 49ers offensive line has started to assert itself, because when that group is playing well, everything else on offense gets easier. You saw it clearly in the most recent performance, where the run game finally found real consistency and Brock Purdy was kept clean for most of the night. The protection wasn't just good by comparison, it was legitimately strong, and the one sack that did happen wasn't even on the offensive line. That matters, because it tells you this group is communicating and executing at a high level. What's interesting is how this ties back to the team's broader philosophy, especially when it comes to the draft. There was a lot of talk about whether the 49ers should have reached for an offensive lineman earlier, but games like this make that decision look a lot more justified. Trent Williams is still playing at an elite level, and even with a slow start by his standards, he's shown no signs of decline. Colton McKivitz has quietly put together a really strong season, establishing himself as a reliable starter not just on this team, but around the league. And in the middle, Jake Brendel continues to be the kind of player coaches trust completely, the type who understands the offense inside and out and keeps everything organized. When you look ahead to next season, it becomes clear that most of these spots are spoken for. That kind of continuity is rare in the NFL and incredibly valuable. The one position that still invites debate is left guard. That's where you can see the team thinking creatively, maybe targeting a player in the draft who can start inside early and eventually slide out to tackle down the line. It's a smart way to balance immediate needs with long-term planning, especially when you consider that Trent Williams won't play forever, even if it feels like he might. I want to hear your take on this. Do you feel comfortable with the offensive line as it's currently constructed, or do you think that unit still needs a major upgrade this offseason? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy these deeper football conversations, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. We're still chasing that goal of 1,000 subscribers, and every bit of support helps push this channel forward. All of this roster stability feeds directly into the bigger questions coming up in the offseason, especially when you start looking at free agency and which players the 49ers simply can't afford to let walk. As we start looking ahead, the conversation naturally shifts to free agency and where the 49ers' biggest priorities really are. And for me, it starts with wide receiver. Right now, that room has more questions than answers. There are some young players developing, some redshirt-type seasons happening, and some uncertainty around who will be back next year. That makes it one of the clearest areas where change or reinforcement could be coming. It doesn't mean the group is empty, but it does mean the margin for error is thinner than you'd like. Jauan Jennings stands out immediately as the top priority. His value to this offense goes beyond raw numbers. He blocks, he makes tough catches, he shows up on third down, and he brings an edge that this team feeds off of. The tricky part is the contract. He's incredibly important. But there's also a reality to what the market will bear. It's hard to imagine another team paying him top-tier receiver money, and it's just as hard to see the 49ers doing that. So the question becomes whether both sides can find that middle ground that makes sense. Then you've got Kendrick Bourne, who's quietly been productive and is sitting right on the edge of incentive bonuses. That's not nothing, and it tells you he's been a useful piece. Sky Y. Moore is another fascinating case. The coaching staff clearly likes him, and the environment seems to suit him. He's a player who could make a lot of sense on a short-term deal, especially if continuity is valued over turnover. At the same time, the team still has to weigh development against opportunity. On the offensive line, the decisions get tougher. Spencer Burford has held his own at left guard, but free agency changes things. Ben Bartch is talented, but availability matters, and injuries complicate his outlook. These aren't easy calls, because they involve money, health, and long-term planning all at once. Even special teams plays a role here, with several core contributors also scheduled for free agency, including the kicker, punter, and long snapper. Those positions don't grab headlines, but they absolutely matter when games tighten up. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you. If you could only re-sign one upcoming free agent, who would it be and why? Drop that in the comments. And if you've made it this far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps keep these updates coming consistently.